All right, welcome back. We're still talking medicals now about COVID-19. Let's get in Dr. Osaho Enabulele, who is the president of Commonwealth Medical Association and the former president of the NMA. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Well, over the past couple of days, we've heard some news, not exactly too encouraging for doctors who have been infected and doctors who have died as a result of this COVID-19, unfortunately. But then you've seen how things are, unfolding in the country. Give us your perspective as to how we are handling this as a nation. Yes, it took a lot of people by unawares, but moving forward, from what you've seen, how would you assess it?
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. I want to take it from the point you made, and that is that from a very phlegmatic response at the very beginning, there seems to be some increased, effort to see how we can galvanize all the factors needed, to address and contain this pandemic. So, from the governance issues, from the issue of the diagnostic testing, the diagnostic facilities, the issue of human resource for health, and of course the issue of infrastructure, and of course the issue of risk communication and public enlightenment. I think all these factors somehow, along with the preventive measures, are being given some level of emphasis. But there's still a lot more that should be done. And that was why I had advised at the very beginning that even as we proceed for a lockdown, we must ensure that all the needed ingredients have been addressed. But unfortunately, we did not see much of that being done, even as you had a lockdown in the country. And so lockdown is not an end in itself. All the factors, a concatenation of the factors that are needed to, of course, engender some level of containment of this pandemic also have been given similar attention. And I believe with the experience we have gathered from the lockdown, the deficiencies of the lockdown, perhaps going forward, we may be able to, of course, get a lot more results if there's a lot more commitment on the part of government with, of course, some national mobilization in support of whatever efforts that are going to be made.
Well, some of those recommendations that you made, were they supposed to play out in an ideal situation, or did you factor in the current challenge and capacity of our health sector?
Yes, certainly. You know that this was not a sudden development for us, in a sense that we saw it coming from outside the country. It was already in the news, and so we had enough time to prepare and address all those ingredients. For instance, if we knew that we were going to isolate individuals, we ought to have prepared ahead of time to get commitment from all stakeholders, particularly those at the government level, the state government, for instance, to see how everybody can work in a direction that will help us to address some of the challenges we're already seeing outside the country. But here we were, even after March, we barely had one or two isolation centers. As I speak to you now, even the isolation center that was constructed by the NCDC has not been put to use. So, but again, we are happy that a lot more of the government have seen the need to, of course, beef up their response strategies to ensure that, of course, we all work in a direction that will help to, of course, alleviate, the pain and the suffering being felt by Nigerians. And, of course, with those who are affected being addressed accordingly. So, we had a lot of time.
Now, there's this conversation currently making the rounds about whether or not the BTF COVID-19 now should advise the president moving forward, can we afford another lockdown in light of what you've seen?
Well, I don't think we can be moving back and forth. What should guide us is the scientific evidence. And of course, what we have done thus far in terms of the learning point for whatever measures we have implemented. Before a lockdown, there ought to have been some necessary, anticipatory, efforts in terms of addressing even the issue of the level of sensitization, the level of mobilization, and the level of enlightenment, the issue of addressing the poverty status of Nigerians in terms of palliative, to those who really are deserving of such palliatives. Recognizing that Nigeria is not one, it's made up of several diverse segments. All right, with a lot of people still struggling with daily incomes. Looking for daily means of survival. So all of that needs to have been cleared. So going forward, I think some of the issues that have not been adequately addressed need to be attended to. For instance, the issue of the testing capacity is still an issue. I'm happy that even in your promo just now, reference was made to the fact that even some neighboring countries in Africa are doing much better than we are doing. As of today, even Rwanda has had more testing than Nigeria. So we need to beef up on all these areas. But importantly, the issue of risk communication, public enlightenment.
So, we would like to raise this issue with you. You heard what our colleague Marquez said the other time about the kind of collaboration that health workers are getting from the authorities in handling or management of COVID-19 in Nigeria. What's your take on the level of collaboration?
Well, it has improved for now, but there's still a lot of effort needs to be done to bridge the gap. And I think this is important going forward because before now, you see, we didn't even have what we call an expert committee, but we have to make that recommendation because you need the experts to guide you in terms of evidence. The same thing with the health workers at the various state levels. They must see them as people coming in to guide, to advise, and to support and complement the efforts of government. We've had instances in some states where they are treated as if they are not important. They must necessarily build them into whatever plans that are being made at the state level, at the local levels, because they are going to be responsible for attending to them even at the grassroots levels. So I think the efforts need to be upscaled in terms of incorporating the health professionals in whatever task forces are being set up, whatever expert committees are being set up at the state and lower levels. That is the way they can get evidence. That is the way they can get professional input. So yes, there's been some effort at improving the present situation, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done, particularly in some states of the Federation, where there seems to be no collaboration at all between the state government and, of course, the respective task forces and the health professionals.
What do you think is responsible for that gap that you talked about just now?
Well, I think it's about leadership. It's about inclusive governance. It's about identifying your priorities, identifying your needs, and getting those ingredients that you need to get to address them. And in this instance, the health professionals are very key in terms of driving the needed evidence to guide your action. So every state government must look for them. Every state government must key them into whatever they are doing because this is a public health issue. And so the professionals need to be built in. And I'm happy some state governments, like I said before, are doing just that. But a lot more need to do that. And they must see them not as adversaries, but people who are going to complement their efforts. And they must allow them to, of course, drive it professionally. Because the issue we're also getting to see in some areas is some level of interference with the professional, expertise of the professionals. I mean, the professionals must be allowed to express their autonomy in terms of giving the necessary evidence and the professional advice. It is not subject to any politics. It should not be subjected to any politics. So I think this needs some level of leadership integration, some level of inclusiveness, some level of understanding of how we need to go forward in terms of addressing this pandemic.
I wonder also what your opinion is concerning Homegrown Solutions, Homegrown Cure. That has been a major conversation for the past few days as a medical professional. And you head, of course, an organization of sort. What is your opinion on that?
In this kind of evolving situation, everything must be brought to the table. Nothing should be discountenanced. And so if you have any idea of any possible solution to this, bring it to the table, bring it to the scientific table, and let everybody look at it, with a scientific lens. So those who are saying they have solutions to this problem, they must necessarily bring it to the table, let the scientific lens be used to analyze it, and if it's proven that it has some level of, it has some potential, of course, we have what we call randomized clinical trials. It goes through the trial stage, and people now have evidence to support your claim. But when you sit in your corners and begin to bandy all sorts of cures or solutions, I mean, it's like everybody's talking to himself. So the scientific process must be undertaken. If there are potentials from any of the suggested solutions, let them bring it to the table for some level of scientific analysis. Nigeria should be able to give a direction, even for Africa. I'm not hearing from other African nations that, look, they are having some level of effort in terms of identifying some solutions.
Let me just put this in also. I mean, we saw the figures from yesterday, and it was quite shocking. We've never recorded that much on a daily basis here in Nigeria. Okay, well, it seems...
Hopefully when he comes. Yeah. You know, part of the other thing is this. We've seen the NERD, the NMA, JOHESU, all of those unions. And when you talk about them coming to the table, one wonders, could it be that the rivalry amongst all of them, has it played any role? Has it hampered them being brought to the table? Because, I mean, if there's that rivalry and you bring in one group and then the other groups tell you, why aren't you guys bringing us on board? Maybe like the medical lab science, allied practitioners, why aren't you bringing us? So how will they handle that? Can they all afford to come on board?
Maybe it's strange and peculiar to the health care service delivery.
Well,
because when I say, in my head, once I say medical, I'm not segregating.
Well, clearly,
but it seems...
practical terms,
yeah.
You are.
Unfortunately, but you know,
well, it shouldn't be.
Which is why they say,
which is my point.
It shouldn't be really, because I mean, whether you are, you know, core or allied, you are all in the same, you know, bowl.
You know, for benefit of a doubt, maybe there's no issue. Let's just say that. So that's why they say maybe health professionals and not medical professionals. But at the end of the day, it would be good to get the insight of some of those professionals as the fact that we have recorded the highest daily case. What will that do for to the plans to maybe further ease the lockdown or reintroduce a lockdown, especially because we've not started even seeing the effect of this lockdown in terms of cases? That would be quite interesting to know.
And how far-reaching will the effect of this increase in figures be on how much pressure will you put on the health workers?
Well, maybe an answer to come in the days ahead. Well, we do thank Dr. Osaho Enabulele, the president of Commonwealth Medical Association and former president of the Nigeria Medical Association. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.